I kind of have to admit that this one's a little bit more difficult for me to explain. It's like I have it. It's like I have it in my mind how I want it to come out, and I understand the concept. But explaining this to you is going to be a little bit different. When I was coming to know God for myself in my late 20s, going to church, the tithe was a big deal. Still is. The tithe is how the church is able to take care of itself for the most part. What people are willing to give as a tithe and an offering are important for the church. Here's one of the difficult parts. It's also one of the things that the temple needs, the building, the structure. The structure, the lights and gas, the maintenance of the building, all those things that it takes to maintain a meeting place. So it's not only important for the church, the people. It's important for the structure, the building, and all that it takes to maintain a building. In the Christian community, we've been told that the church, or led to believe that we're going to church, we're going to the meeting place, when in truth, the meeting place is not the church. The tabernacle of the congregation is the tabernacle itself. The congregation is the congregation. Now, why am I explaining this? I'm explaining it this way because the whole idea of having a church is to sufficiently fulfill the needs of the individual members of that congregation. The temple, well, the temple has to be maintained as well, which is again another reason why you really need the tithes and the offerings. But you need both. You need to take care of the people, and you need to take care of the temple. All through our study, I hope I've demonstrated to you the enormous benefit of a group of people coming together, operating together to accomplish goals. This is true in nonprofit organizations. This is true in temples, mosques. This is true in business. This is true in politics. This is true in the military. This is true internationally. This is just truth. This is the system that God has set up, which is kind of the hard part to convey, but I'm hoping I'm going to do a good job on this. This is the system that God has set up for us to prosper. All of us, not just one, not just the president of the company, not just the pastor of the church, all of us. If all of us are not profiting, then something is not operating according to the kingdom of God's principles. I believe that this is where I will begin to get the argument from some people, because in particular, as descendants of American slaves here in America, as an example, we have not been taught unity. We have been taught to run our organizations, our families, as a top-down model, which means that the one on top is the one that sets the rules. Not true. The one on top is the one that prospers, not by themselves. We all should prosper. Every tribe walked into Canaan. Every tribe prospered. Now, there were groups of people from the various tribes that didn't make it the 41-year journey, whether they aged out or because of some disobedient act, they were taken out. Or if it was murmuring and complaining, Moses got taken out before actually crossing over to Canaan. But he did his part to help the whole to prosper. He was already prosperous. He was prosperous before he got involved. He lost everything to get involved. We have a particular way of looking at success, and we're usually looking at ourselves, and where we're counting what we've accumulated. I personally don't think this is the only measure of success. I believe the measure of success is partially what you help others achieve. This is the purpose of the tithe. It is to help others achieve. A lot of people say that it's all about bringing the tithes into the storehouse so that there may be meat in my house. Yeah, to help others achieve. God doesn't need your tithe, your offering. He wants multiplication. And you multiply by helping others achieve. I've had multiple conversations with multiple people over the years, and I get their point of view on success, giving, receiving, and but a lot of people have a different point of view. I remember talking to this one guy outside of this temple, and he was telling me about how black folks don't have no money. I'll never forget it. And I asked him, can you write $100,000 check? And he said, sure, I can write $100,000 check. I said, then your statement isn't true. You're what's called a black man. I think he thought he was exceptional. he was unwilling to participate in the success of others within the platform of the temple. I can tell you truly in the what they call the black community, but I personally call it the descendants of American slaves, that the thinking for the older is that I got what I got, now you go get what you get. And the best I can give you is some advice in a riddle. The mindset is devastating because the purpose of our financial success is to bring seed into the temple for the purpose of multiplication. Not just multiplication of financial gain, multiplication of the kingdom. Or, if you will, multiplication within the kingdom. Deuteronomy chapter 14. Deuteronomy 14, verse 22. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed. All the increase of thy seed. I'm going to go back just a minute, back to Genesis, I think, 4. And you have to forgive me because this ain't scripted. But this is, kind of the way I study. I want to go back to Genesis and read you the account of Cain, son of Adam. It's interesting we started talking about offerings after the fall. It didn't happen before the fall. Tithes and offerings and that sort of thing. It happened after the fall. The first mention that I can figure out, other than God offering up animals to cover the sin of, or the nakedness of Adam and Eve. The next thing I can remember is this in Genesis chapter 4, where Cain slew his brother Abel. His offering was not acceptable. Why? In Genesis chapter 4, verse 3, it says it like this. In a process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Now I can keep reading where Abel brought of the firstlings, which is like saying he brought of his seed, not of the fruit. Now, fruit has seed in it. So, we're not talking about we're not talking about specifically about what was brought. We're talking about the heart condition behind it. Giving of your seed provides others with the opportunity to grow their own fruit. Giving of your seed provides others the opportunity to give of the fruit. Well, and let me read it back in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22. Thou shalt truly tithe all of the increase of thy seed that the field brings forth year by year. Now, this could be understood that your field will bring forth seed year by year because of your obedience to give of your seed. I dare say that I'm going to look at it a little bit differently. I see it as when you bring forth your tithe to the congregation, to the tabernacle of the congregation, fields are planted. Just me. Study to show yourself approved. And those fields are for a specific group of people. I think of Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, that cut the corners of his field for the purpose of taking care of those who did not have fields. So this is not an unusual practice. This is usual. This is kingdom business. This is how it works. Because everyone doesn't have a field. And the only way to plant a field is to bring seed. Seed needs to be prepared to be planted. But follow me on this, because this is very important, and I messed this up many years. I just flat didn't understand all this. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed. I always heard that when you earn an income, you just give 10% of your income. It's not that simple. Not that simple. You need fertile ground to plant in. In other words, you need to be around and in a community of people who understand the value of the seed that you're bringing. Oftentimes, I talk to business leaders who may enjoy the relationship, but aren't willing to plant seed. For whatever reason. What I mean is, they'll give of their fruit, but they won't give of their seed. Verse 23, and thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in a place where he shall choose to place his name there, tabernacle of the congregation. The tithe of the corn and of thy wine and of thy oil and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou may learn to fear the Lord thy God. And if the way be too long for thee, in other words, if you have to travel a long distance and you have a lot to give, don't worry about it. Thou shalt turn, verse 25, thou shalt turn the money, thou shalt turn into money and bind up the money in thy hand, and shall go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lust after. Now, wait a minute. He said take the tithe. I hope you're reading this along. Thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lust after, for oxen or sheep, for wine or strong drink, whatever the soul desires, and thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. Verse 27 is important too. And the Levite that within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he hath no part nor inheritance with thee. At the end of 3 years, verse 28, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year, and shalt lay up within thy gates. There's a lot there to unpack. I've always been told to just give the tithe to the church by way of the temple. However, the temple is supposed to distribute, and it's supposed to be a collective celebration. See, if I can't bring it with me, I'm supposed to sell it, bring money, come to the temple, eat together as a family unit, all while taking care of the Levites. That's church. In other words, I'm also enjoying the fruit of my relationships at that chosen place that God has called me to. However, there are others that need to enjoy it too. Verse 29. And the Levite, because he hath no part in the inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which within thy gates shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thine hand which thou dost. This is not a concept. This is how the kingdom was made to act. So tell me, is that the way it works at your temple? At your mosque? Are you enjoying the fruit of your relationships when you bring that which you've worked hard for? Are we taking the stranger in, sowing into them so that they have a place where they feel comfortable and supported as they come to understand who God is through how you treat them? I've seen it done. I've seen a man come out of jail and a ministry help get him started. I've seen a young lady start her ministry and a ministry leader making sure that she felt his presence within her ministry as she got started. But I have also seen a business owner starting his business and receiving no support, or very little. Broken promises. I've seen a lot of things, but the idea is consistency in the kingdom breeds multiplication of the kingdom. Consistency in the kingdom of God breeds multiplication in the kingdom of heaven. Place. We are his ambassadors. It's not It's not just cool to demand somebody brings their tithes, their offerings, their first fruit. It is our responsibility to properly invest what has been brought so that the seed is planted so that everyone can eat from the fruit of the seed planted. If you're constantly giving away the seed as an organization and not planting the seed, investing, then you will feel uncomfortable giving to the church. And you should. Because you're giving away seed. Real estate, insurance, and securities. CashApp $MrPaulDozier. CashApp $MrPaulDozier. We are on a journey from Genesis to Revelation. I have no idea how long it's going to take, but we're making that trek. We're finishing up the Torah here in the book of Deuteronomy. Really excited to be able to say I did that. Hope it's beneficial for you. If these videos and podcasts are beneficial to you, please like them, share them on whatever platform you're listening to them on. They can possibly help some other people understand the concepts of the kingdom of God. This is my personal Bible study. So study to show yourself approved. I'm not God. I like to believe I'm his representative. You can support me also with Amazon Books. Ghetto Education is on Amazon by Paulcdozier. And The Christ Culture, The Business of Ministry. I also have 2 other books I just don't advertise. And thank you for taking this journey with me. And for all those who believe in the kingdom of God, thank you for taking this journey with us.